The very latest on Sasha Banks' return to WWE amid rumours that contract talks have stalled with WWE. Speaking of return, Charlotte Flair, what's the latest when it comes to her return? She's teased it on social media. Speaking of the Flairs, Ric Flair, could he be at the Royal Rumble in January? He speaks on his status for the premium live event. We have the update on the participants in the Iron Survivor Challenge in NXT. Speaking of NXT, Tony D'Angelo will be making his return to in-ring action next week. Dominik Dijakovic, now known as Dijak, made his in-ring return last night in NXT on the USA Network. We have the ratings for last week's edition of Smackdown, plus Kevin Owens is working through an injury, and the latest on Robert Roode's return to WWE. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. So let's start off talking about Sasha Banks and a bit of a rumor killer on this one. Something that was being widely reported or put out there is not factually accurate. So it's always important to get the facts, always important to get the latest accurate news, and new information has emerged regarding a rumor that had previously been circulated about Sasha Banks' possible return to WWE. The now debunked rumor claimed that Fightful had reported that talks between Banks and WWE had halted. However, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has now posted clarification about the rumor on its Patreon service. Be sure to check it out and subscribe, saying there is absolutely no truth to the report. The site didn't report that, and that Sasha Banks' status with WWE is still unknown. The post said, quote, "There was a post going around from Dirt Sheet Radio claiming we reported talks between WWE and Sasha Banks have halted again. This post is completely false, and we have no additional info on Sasha Banks and WWE at this time," end quote. Of course, Banks has not appeared on WWE television for several months now, after walking out on the May 16 edition of Monday Night Raw alongside tag team partner and then Women's Tag Team Championship partner Naomi. In the intervening months, neither Banks nor Naomi has publicly commented on their status with the company, whether they have been formally released or if they ever intend on returning to WWE programming. The latest known update on Banks was, according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, that she and WWE were in contract talks, but there was a, quote, money situation, and it's unknown where things stand right now. So that was really the latest, and again, I think because of what Meltzer had said and because of what Meltzer had reported, there was kind of this feeling that there might be some developments or there might be some reason what the money situation was, and I think most likely, and look, this is the game when it comes to wrestling news, is that you have people that can provide exclusives and can provide scoops, you know, the reputable sources, Sean Ross Sapp, Dave Meltzer, Mike Johnson of PW Insider, Andrew Zarian from the McMahon Wrestling Podcast, etc. There are people out there, very credible people out there. You then have the sort of chances that will see bits of news and try to add bits on it or speculate and guess and pass them off as exclusives. And then you have channels like this, whereby we see what news is out there, we talk about it, we report it, give an opinion on it and move on. And most importantly, I try my very best to wait for you to give your opinion on it. That's what the channel is all about. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about any news story that we talk about here. But as far as Sasha Banks, it would appear that there's no new talks, no new update when it comes to her right now. Again, the latest was that Dave Meltzer report. I still expect her ultimately to return to WWE. It's about timing at this point. When is the best time for a return? Now that we're on the road to the Royal Rumble, the fact that it's about 8 weeks away, there's plenty of time for situations on money or issues on money to be figured out. Frankly, when it comes to Dave Meltzer's reporting on the matter, it must be said he said similar things about people that have eventually returned to WWE. I go back to the Bray Wyatt example. He spoke about Bray Wyatt earlier this year prior to Bray Wyatt's return to the company, and he said that they had been in talks, they had been in contract talks, but they had stalled. Later on, Bray Wyatt returned to WWE at Extreme Rules. So just because talks stall or just because things slow down, it doesn't mean they can't be salvaged or they can't be overcome. And that's probably the case, I think, with Sasha Banks. So again, ultimately, I expect her to return to WWE. I think that obviously she teased a possibility that she could go to AEW. I think that's very unlikely. The only thing, as I mentioned before, that I think could be possible for her to go to AEW would be the schedule, would be her working once a week as opposed to 4 or 5 times a week with WWE. The money she would make would probably be not anywhere near the money she would be making in WWE, but she's also got outside projects. Another aspect of possibly her going to AEW could be that she might want to work in Japan. We now see, obviously the success of Stardom. There's now an IWGP Women's Championship. Possibly she might want to win that. She's won everything there is in WWE. She's done everything apart from win the Royal Rumble. Apart from that, she's won every bout there is to do. She's main evented WrestleMania. So anything's possible, and if we've learned anything in 2022, anything can and will happen in the world of professional wrestling, so keep an eye out when it comes to that. Speaking of return, Charlotte Flair. When is Charlotte Flair going to come back to WWE? Well, if any social media posts recently from the Queen are to be believed, it could be very soon. It may soon be time to bow down to the Queen, Charlotte Flair, once again. If Flair's Instagram is any indication, the former Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion is gearing up for her impending return to WWE. In the past 24 hours, she has shared a series of posts on her Instagram story, specifically showing her trademark entrance to the ring, with 3 of the posts displaying her wearing the SmackDown Women's Championship around her waist. The last post in the succession of WWE-related posts on her Instagram story is an image of Flair wearing her wrestling boots while sitting on what appears to be the canvas of a wrestling ring. Flair last appeared on WWE programming at the WrestleMania Backlash Premium Live event on May 8, where she lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey in a brutal I Quit match. After that match in Providence, Rhode Island, WWE wrote Flair off television by claiming she had suffered a fractured radius. In reality, though, Flair was scheduled to take time away from WWE to marry AEW star Andrade El Idolo in Mexico. The pair tied the knot at the end of May after becoming engaged in January of 2020. Following her wedding, it seemed that Flair was poised to return to television. The PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, advertised the Queen for a SmackDown taping in August, but she did not appear at the show. The advertisement came prior to Vince McMahon's retirement from WWE, which could suggest that plans changed once Paul Triple H Levesque assumed control of WWE's creative. During her time away from WWE, she's partnered with jewelry designer Rockford Collections, which is resulted in her doing some press for that. But as far as Charlotte Flair, it would appear that she's going to be coming back soon. Again, now that we're not on the road to WrestleMania just yet, but I suppose the road to the Royal Rumble has started. It's always an interesting time with WWE this time of the year, because once they get past Survivor Series, historically, it's just a dead spot. It's a dead spot for them, even when they have pay-per-views, even when they had the December pay-per-view that they no longer have. It's always a dead spot. There's just nothing going on. And sometimes WWE can go either which of a couple of ways for it. They can just build, they can plant seeds. Sometimes they can want to, again, plant seeds for the future by bringing people back and by having returns. And it might be a case of WWE realize, you know what? We are going to be a bit flat. We are going to be a bit short when it comes to stuff happening, and we do need something big to kind of tide us over into the new year. And that might be the return of Charlotte Flair. That might be the return of Charlotte Flair to television. As to what she would do, I mean, would she go after Ronda Rousey again? I suppose so. Becky Lynch looks to be on Raw, so maybe they pick up that feud with Ronda Rousey. I mean, the Ronda Rousey stuff on SmackDown just frankly ain't working. It really isn't. I mean, the drop-off in terms of the feeling of superstardom from Ronda Rousey from when she first came into WWE until now is really astronomical. She feels like just everyone else. She doesn't feel special at all, really. And the matches have got worse. They suck. I mean, people are still talking about the match at Survivor Series being not good. I still question why they booked that match in the first place, because Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi is not worthy of a Survivor Series premium live event, in my opinion. So maybe they bring Charlotte Flair back and they want to try and spike that SmackDown Women's division again. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Flairs, though, will Ric Flair be at the Royal Rumble? Not in the Royal Rumble, even though you know for a fact he would do it in a heartbeat. With Survivor Series War Games over, WWE's next premium live event is the Royal Rumble. In the latest episode of his To Be The Man podcast, Ric Flair that being, spoke about the January 28, 2023 event and his status for the show. The WWE Hall of Famer revealed that he was not invited to the Royal Rumble, but he will be at the 30th anniversary edition of Raw. The episode is set for January 23, 2023. There's a lot of 23s in there. Quote, "I'm still looking forward to the 30th anniversary. By the way, of course, social media screwed that up. I have not been invited to the Rumble," said Flair. "I am going to San Antonio to sign autographs separately on the day of the Rumble. I was not invited to the Rumble. However, if they want me to put my gear on, like at last match, that's fine." Flair also joked with Conrad Thompson about getting him a new robe for the Royal Rumble, while Thompson joked that Flair was going to be number 30 in the Men's Rumble match. It's interesting to note that Flair's last Rumble match was in 2008, where he defeated MVP. That was on the road to his retirement match at WrestleMania that year, WrestleMania 24 against Shawn Michaels. Flair was granted his WWE release in August of last year. Before his release, Flair was involved in an on-screen storyline with Lacey Evans on Raw. In later interviews, he admitted he was uncomfortable with the storyline. Flair was there in order to aid Evans against his daughter Charlotte. The feud was going to end up in a match at WrestleMania 37, though it never happened because in February 2021, Evans announced that she was pregnant, and then Charlotte Flair didn't even wrestle at that year's WrestleMania because there was a situation going on at the time as well. It was a wild time. But Ric Flair is not going to be at the Royal Rumble. He's not going to be wrestling at the Rumble. Thank God. I never want to see Ric Flair wrestle another match. The last match stuff in the summer was enough. It really, really was. But he's going to be at the 30th anniversary edition of Raw. Talk about NXT, of course, last night's episode was on the USA Network, and we have an update on the Iron Survivor Challenge participants. During Tuesday's episode of NXT, the Senior Vice President of Talent Development, Creative, Shawn Michaels, and WWE Hall of Famers X-Pac, Road Dogg, Alundra Blaze, and Molly Holly discussed who will participate in the inaugural Men's and Women's Iron Survivor Challenge matches at the Deadline event on December 10. Michaels later announced those chosen for the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge match will include Carmelo Hayes, JD McDonough, Joe Gacy, and Grayson Waller. The final participant will be determined in a three-way match between Andre Chase, I always struggle with this one, Axiom, and Von Wagner on next Tuesday's NXT. Zoe Stark, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, and Kiana James were announced for the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge match. Just like for the men, the final participant for the women's match will be determined on the December 6th episode. The scheduled three-way match is Indy Hartwell versus Wendy Chu versus Fallon Henley. Michaels announced the rules for the Iron Survivor Challenge matches on the November 15 edition of NXT. 2 wrestlers will begin the match, with a new one entering every 5 minutes until all 5 competitors are officially in the ring. The 5 NXT superstars will aim to earn points for every successful fall. When the match reaches the 25-minute mark, the competitor with the most points will win the match and earn the title of Iron Survivor. The men's and women's winners will also receive future title shots for the NXT Championship and NXT Women's Championship. The full rules for Iron Survival Challenge match are available at WWE's website if you wish to read through them at your leisure. It's quite complicated, quite convoluted, and my feeling is this is an attempt by WWE to try and create something different and fresh, but those rules will be confusing, I think. But we'll see how they play out. Tony D'Angelo is going to be returning to in-ring competition next week as well. He's set to return to in-ring action on next week's edition of NXT in what will be his first match in over 2 months. On last night's edition of NXT, Shawn Michaels and fellow WWE Hall of Famer Sean Waltman, Road Dogg, Alundra Blaze, and Molly Holly were seen in a backstage segment discussing the participants for the Iron Survivor Challenge. During the conversation, Blaze nominated D'Angelo for the first time ever match at Deadline, while praising the Don's quick rise as a pro wrestler within a year of his NXT debut. This led to Michaels, WWE Senior Vice President of Talent Development Creative, that title was so long, providing an update on D'Angelo's road to recovery from a knee injury. Michael said that while he appreciates D'Angelo's competitive desire to get back to the ring, the young wrestler was still a couple of weeks away from a comeback, ruling out D'Angelo as a participant in the Iron Survivor Challenge. Later in the show, D'Angelo confronted Dijak in the parking lot, thanking the former Dominik Dijakovic for attacking Wesley in his NXT return the previous week. "Thank you for softening up Wesley last week," D'Angelo told Dijak. "We really appreciate that. Between you and me, I'm back in the ring next week." Dijak then denied doing any favors for D'Angelo, stressing that Lee was just a casualty in his path of destruction. In response, D'Angelo hinted at challenging Lee for the NXT North American Championship in the near future. "Whether Wesley is on your list or not, I'm going to see that his days as North American Champion are numbered," D'Angelo said. Now, D'Angelo suffered a knee injury in a Halloween Havoc ladder match qualifier against Lee on September 14. The match would air actually later on September 27, and has continued to call out the reigning North American Champion through various promos and social media posts. In October, Channing Stacks Lorenzo accused Lee of intentionally hurting D'Angelo during their match, referring to Lee as a wolf in sheep's clothing, who will face the consequences for his actions. While WWE is yet to announce D'Angelo's opponent for next week, it remains to be seen if Lee versus D'Angelo is announced for the Deadline Premium Live event on December 10. So, DAngelo returns next week. Speaking of return to in-ring competition, Dijak, we spoke about him just then, has his first match in NXT in over 2 years. For the first time since his match against Karrion Kross on the July 14, 2020 episode of NXT, Dijak returned to his old stomping grounds on Tuesday to wrestle Dante Chen. Dijak made quick work of Chen to register his first victory since his return to the black and gold brand last week. After the match, you can see it on the screen right there, Dijak sent a stern warning to the rest of the NXT roster, stressing that the manner in which he dominated Chen was his version of justice and that nobody could escape from his path. The veteran wrestler also called out NXT champion Bron Breakker and Apollo Crews, Breakker's opponent at Deadline, as he emphasized that he returned to WWE's developmental show to eviscerate everyone. So it would appear that maybe this was implying that Bron Breakker's probably going to defeat, well, he is going to defeat Apollo Crews at Deadline, and possibly Dijak might be Breakker's next opponent moving forward. But great to see Dijak back in the ring and rid of the old T-bar stuff and Retribution skin. That was just, let's move on. We got the ratings for Friday's edition of Smackdown. Of course, there was a delay due to Thanksgiving, but now the viewership figure and demo rating for Friday's edition of Smackdown has been revealed. According to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, Smackdown drew 2.166 million viewers. This is down from the November 18 edition that drew 2.232 million viewers. In the 18 to 49 demographic, Friday's episode scored a 0.54 rating. This is also down from the week prior that scored a 0.56 rating. The show served as the go-home show ahead of Survivor Series War Games. That was the following night on November 26th, that being a Saturday. The episode featured the return of Becky Lynch to fill the final spot in the Women's War Games match. It shouldn't be much of a surprise, to be honest, that it was down. It was a holiday. You know, it was the day after Thanksgiving, so it was Black Friday. So during the holiday season, the ratings always go down, unless you're, of course, live sport, which sometimes they'll go up because everyone's at home watching. But usually those people are busy with family matters, etc. So the fact that it's still over 2 million, they'll be happy about that. And I think that's a decent number for SmackDown during the holidays. Kevin Owens. Now, if you recall, we spoke about this last week. Heading into War Games, there was a lot of concern a couple of weeks ago that Kevin Owens was in trouble when it came to an injury, right? He was in trouble when it came to possibly suffering a knee injury at a live event, but seemingly he's fine. He wrestled at Survivor Series in the War Games match. He wrestled on Monday in the main event of Monday Night Raw, and he seems fine, right? Well, what's going on? Well, of course, Kevin Owens made his return on the November 18 episode of SmackDown as the final member of the Brawling Brutes War Games team. Owens had recently suffered a knee injury that had kept him off WWE television for a few weeks, and the injury had reportedly put Owens' status for Survivor Series in doubt, but he was ultimately able to return to make it to the match. However, this doesn't mean that Owens is completely injury-free. Dave Meltzer replied to a fan on Twitter who said that he believed Owens was injured, to which Meltzer replied, quote, "He's working through a sprained MCL." Now, this sprained MCL didn't stop him taking part in an excellent Raw main event with Jey Uso on Monday night. Owens was involved in a verbal incident with Roman Reigns, of course, following the Survivor Series Premium Live event due to an unplanned spot in the match. Despite that, though, KO versus Roman Reigns is still set to take place at the Royal Rumble, according to creative reports, for the Undisputed Universal Championship. So despite the injury, Kevin Owens is going to work through it. If he's working through the injury, I'm surprised he did the main event on Monday. I would have thought WWE might have played that one safe, but if he's working Raw main events, it would seem that he's fine and certainly good enough to compete on television. Finally, we have an update on Robert Roode. Of course, there's been rumors about his return to WWE television from injury soon. He's been absent from WWE since June, last working live events for the company, and his last televised match was in April before WrestleMania 38 as part of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale, or whatever you want to call it. Although it's been a while since WWE fans have seen the former NXT champion due to a medical procedure he underwent in September, recent reports suggest that his return was imminent, with WWE now adding even more credence to those rumors. During a photo shoot featuring superstars showing off their support for their countries in the FIFA World Cup, Roode was shown wearing a Team Canada jersey, which happens to be his home country. Not only was Roode just shown in the photo, but behind him were also the blue colours of SmackDown, which was shown for every other talent shown representing their country's jerseys. Roode has been a member of the Raw roster before his injury earlier this year. For example, Asuka, who currently is on the Raw brand, was shown supporting Japan wearing the Japan jersey, while the red colours of Raw Paul was shown in the background. Also shown in the photos with Rey Mysterio, Raquel Gonzalez, and Rhea Ripley, and many others, also shown embracing their countries, while the colours of their respective brands were shown in the background of their photos. This photo would then seem to suggest that Roode is on SmackDown when he does return, but that impending date appears to still be yet to be determined. The change in regime from Vince McMahon to Triple H could be a good sign for the returning Roode, who hasn't won a match since January. Roode was a main event star holding the NXT Championship, while Triple H was in charge of the developmental brand. So seemingly, Roode will be back soon. He will be on SmackDown, and who knows how he's going to be featured. So there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.